From the nonpartisan Maddy Institute and the California channel at the state capitol, this is a Maddy Policy Brief. Welcome back. I'm Mark Kepler with the Maddy Institute. We're talking to California's nonpartisan legislative analyst, Mac Taylor. California's public education system, kindergarten through college, is the largest in the country. It's also the biggest expense in the state budget. So, what are the primary sources of operating revenue for K-12 education?
Basically, the state provides most support for school districts. We raise the money, but we send a lot down to districts, but they're also supported by property taxes and some federal dollars.
Okay, and I think the breakdown, the percentage I read in your report are 60% from the state, 30% local, and 10% from the feds. So that kind of gives you an idea where the money's coming from. Let's talk specifically about state funding for education. How much is provided per student, and how is that determined?
Well, let's just talk about Proposition 98, which in effect sets up, doesn't set a maximum, but it has generally determined the amount that schools have for their basic operations. And we're certainly currently spending about $10,217 per student.
Sounds like a lot.
It does sound like a lot. And the way that we do it, we send money down to districts and they have a lot of control over that. We basically have a target to give every student the same amount of money. However, in addition to that, we give extra money when a child is low income, English learner, or a foster youth.
A little bonus, it sounds like.
It's like a 20% bonus.
Right.
Then in addition, a district can get additional bonuses if their concentration of those particular students is more than 55% of their district enrollment.
And this is a bit of a change. In the past, there was something called categoricals where the state would say, okay, here's the money, but here are the strings attached. Now they're saying, here's the money for this thing called local control funding formula. You decide how to spend it.
We're still giving these extra amounts based on categoricals of the past, say, low income. It's just that we determine the amounts, we send the money, they determine how to spend it.
Local control. Okay, so let's talk about some of the key metrics of education. Teacher pay, class size, enrollment trends. What have you found there?
Well, there's a basic trade-off here. We have very high teacher salaries in California, some of the highest in the country. But as a result, we tend to have some of the highest class sizes in the state. We typically rank towards the very bottom on that. So obviously there is a trade-off there.
Right.
And that's the sort of mix that we've decided on, at least at this time.
Yeah, it seems like if you lower the pay, then the teachers couldn't afford to live in California. So you have to increase the pay. So the way that works out is you have larger class sizes.
Well, of course, that varies a lot by where you are in the state.
Right, right. So what about the special challenges when it comes to K-12 education?
We have, as we talked about, we have those low-income kids, which are about 60% of the student body in K-12 education. So you obviously have some challenges there dealing with lower-income kids. You have special education, which is about 10% of our students. Now, a lot of those special education is for very relatively minor disabilities, speech impairment and things like that. But there are some much more serious special education problems that are funded through that special amount. And we also have, English learners too. Right. So we have a variety of things that we still try to account for.
English learners are a big part of the school population. I was reading 1/5 or almost 2.7 million students are English learners.
Well, there's 2.7 that can speak a different language at home.
Okay.
We have about a quarter of our population that are considered English learners. They're not proficient in English.
Right.
And that's a very big challenge.
Yeah, and that's going to obviously affect school scores, and when you're comparing California scores maybe to other states, it affects that, I would assume.
It's something you would want to take into account when you're comparing interstate scores.
Yeah, let's talk about California's public universities. Are they very popular to do? A lot of Californians like to go to CSUs and UCs.
The California is a little different from the rest of the nation in that we educate more of our college students at public institutions. Over 3/4 go there. So our University of California, our California State University, and our community colleges, who take in the most students, are a very important part of college education in this state.
Yeah, you look at some of the other states where they might have a public university system. Let's say University of Connecticut, that's one public school, but then you've got some other like Western Connecticut, et cetera. But then you've got Yale University and Fairfield and Wesley, all these other schools where kids go to. We don't have quite as many of those. It seems like in California.
Not as many.
Okay, what about how expensive are California schools, higher education? Are they a lot more expensive compared to their comparable universities?
Yeah, I think you really have to break it out by segment. So for example, on the University of California, our tuition tends to be at the higher end of the range, probably in the top, 20% of their comparable institutions. It's a very different story for CSU, the state university, where we're in sort of the bottom 6th of tuition cost.
A good deal, you would argue.
It's a very good deal, and community colleges are the best deal.
Right.
Because not only are our tuition rates for a full paying student the lowest in the nation by far,
wow,
There's about 2/3 of the units that are taken where students don't pay anything. They get fee waivers.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of get your 2 years done. If you're going to get a 4-year degree, get your 2 years done at a community college in California. Are students graduating on time? I mean, it used to be you went to school, college for 4 years. That seems like an anomaly these days.
I think we're dating ourselves, Mark.
Right, maybe are.
If you look at how many kids are getting out of UC in 4 years, it's about 60%. For CSU, it's under 20%.
Wow.
And now we have been making improvement in recent years. Those have been edging up, but it's still, I think we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, a lot of students are are working while they're going to school, which makes it, it takes longer to
And
get
I'm
through.
not sure there's a big problem there. I think it's when you have more full-time students who are just not getting through in the time they should.
Yeah, well, thanks for talking about that overall view of education in California. For a more in-depth analysis of this and other public policy issues important to Californians, please log on to our website at maddyinstitute.org and click on the Policy Analysis tab.